Afternoon, folks. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited about the two entrepreneurs I have coming on the podcast show. I think they're going to give us insights and maybe inspire us, share their stories with us, and perhaps together we can not only learn from them, but find ways to contribute to making their lives better too. So my first guest, and you guys know, I've mentioned it many times, I have dyslexia, so sometimes I get names wrong. So this afternoon's guests are going to challenge me to say things right, but Lydia is joining us. Oh, sorry, Vidya, not Lydia, Vidya. So I told you already to get the letters wrong. Vidya will be joining us. She runs a wonderful retreat called Suryalila. She'll say it right when she comes on in a moment. She's put together an amazing summit, which I'm proud to be a part of. She'll tell us about that this afternoon. 1,000 Suns Online Wellness Summit. I think something we all need right now. She's already been bringing wellness into people's lives for quite a long time. She'll tell us how, she'll tell us why, and hopefully share with you not only her inspirational story of how she's innovating right now in this very difficult time and inspire you, share with you how you can perhaps also innovate, and together we can feel just a little bit better. I will also have another guest coming on this afternoon, Chris Reddy. He has a new business called Bright Leaders. His pitch is courageous influencers leading extraordinary lives. And now, because I'm doing the podcast from home, my dog is moving the light. Come here, dog. So this is the joys of lockdown life in London right now, folks. But my little dog Bella just moved the light. So anyway, on with the show, as they say. Don't work with animals, right? The second guest, I think, will have quite a lot to say about their business and what they're trying to achieve. Again, I think you'll learn something from the guest coming on this afternoon. Plus, hopefully, we can help them with their startup, which is a big mission here at the Purposeful Project. And that's why I do this podcast show. We're here to help 1 million people start a business of their own. We're well on our way. We're also here to make sure that no entrepreneur feels alone doing it. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my first guest, and we'll just make sure the tech works, which it does. Wonderful. Hi, Vidya. How are you doing?
Hi. Thank you, Simon. And yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Well, I've spoken to you a few times. I've been on your podcast show, and we've chatted in the past about what you're doing to innovate with your business. I think it'd be really useful for my audience to perhaps just hear a little bit about you and what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. I opened this yoga retreat center in southern Spain, in Andalusia, 10 years ago now. And it's a retreat center that hosts groups, mostly yoga groups. And we also have like hotel guests and that kind of thing. So we've been really successful. I used to actually have a yoga studio in Massachusetts in the States before I came here. But because I've been teaching around the world, I teach yoga teacher trainings, and I've been doing that around the world for about 10 years in different retreat centers. So I felt like I'd just been studying what makes a good retreat center for about 10 years before I decided to open my own. And it was mostly because I really was searching for that perfect place, and it was very elusive. And then I just had the idea, I know what makes a perfect place, so I'm going to create it myself. And that's what inspired me to create the yoga retreat center here. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. It's been really amazing just to see it grow and expand. And I just have been constantly upgrading it and doing amazing things. And I even started a big permaculture project here to plant thousands of trees and also to educate people about permaculture. So we have a lot going on here, and it went amazingly well. We started out by leasing the place in the beginning with the hope to be able to buy it, and we were able to buy it within 5 years of starting the business. So everything was going amazingly well, right up until last March, where the world kind of fell apart a little bit. And of course, tourism just came to a grinding halt. And so we've experienced like 9 months of no business, which has been a huge challenge because we have a lot of overheads And yeah, so I think I've just been trying to, come up with ideas for raising money and for sort of reinventing Suryalila, at least for the time being. And a few months ago, we decided to create a 3-day online summit. And the topic of the summit is how to build inner and outer resilience in a turbulent world, because I think it's definitely the topic of the moment. And it was definitely the topic for me. And yeah, so we've been working on this summit for the last 2 months, and I think we've had a really good response to it. We've got some really incredible content, and we've had an amazing team of people. None of us have ever created a summit before, so it's been a real learning experience. But yeah, it's going to be running the first weekend of December, the 4th to the 6th. And it's called 1,000 Suns Online. And 1,000 is just written like 1,000, the number numerically, 1,000 Suns Online. And that's the, new kind of summit. I don't know. I think I'm going to continue with online business and probably all kinds of yoga courses and other summits and that kind of thing. But right now I'm really focused on the summit that we're currently creating, which you're participating in. And we had loads of great people, do interviews, and we've got lots of just great tools to give people to help them to navigate through these like troubled waters that we have right now. So yeah, so that's where I'm at right now currently.
So what made you go into doing it on your own? You're in Massachusetts, you're studying. What made you make that leap? Again, for a lot of my audience, they want to make that leap themselves, even
yeah,
it was tough. What made you make that leap? What happened?
Well, I mean, I was traveling a lot. I was traveling and teaching for many years, which is probably lots of people's ideal job. But I actually got a little bit tired of traveling all the time. And I was going to really beautiful locations, but I just had this feeling of wanting to put down roots after it was about 10 years where I was mostly traveling. And I knew I didn't want to be in Massachusetts anymore. I've been running a studio there for 6 years. I have my own studio there. And then I managed to sell my studio because I really wanted to leave the East Coast because of the winters there. They're really extreme, and I'd had enough of winters on the East Coast. So I was looking for somewhere warm to live. And because I have the experience of working in lots of retreat centers, and also I already had a course that I was running that's already a successful course, and I could run it all over the world and get people to come. So it just occurred to me I could do this anywhere. I could choose, instead of having people come, instead of me going to a retreat center, I could have people come to me. So what gave me the courage actually to open my own retreat, it was actually a friend. We did it together. In the beginning I had a partner, which is not, I've had a few businesses with partners, and I always find it's quite challenging having a business with a partner. And our partnership lasted for 3 years actually, but it was very, very helpful in the beginning to have a business partner, because I'm more visionary by nature, but I'm not very good at doing spreadsheets and this kind of thing. And so I think partnering up with somebody that had more of a business head in that respect and was able to kind of crunch numbers and all of that kind of thing was super helpful for me. So I feel like sometimes it's good having support. I've also had other businesses that I've opened on my own, but this was the biggest project that I've ever been involved in. So it was a lot more complex and involved investors and that kind of thing. So it was really good to have some moral support. And then we also had to talk to loads of people and get legal support and, how to actually structure a business. I think it's really important to, just get as much. What we found in the initial year before we opened the business was we spent like hours and hours talking to people, about just different scenarios, different ideas for raising money, different ideas for setting up a sort of business structure for what we wanted to do. And I felt like that was a really important time, not to just rush into it, but actually to really look into the whole, business aspects of what we were going to do.
Do you recommend people get partners? I mean, it sounds like you're saying there it's nice to have someone to talk to, but you also mentioned that it was a 3-year thing. What's your overarching feeling about having a partner if you're looking to start a business?
Well, I mean, I think it can go either way. So I don't highly recommend having a partner, but I think it depends if you have, for example, my strength is not really in economics and in, as I said, in the business side of things. So I kind of felt like I needed to have somebody that knew more about that. And you could just have advisors, like I don't think you necessarily need to have a partner. You could just have people advising you. But if it was a big project, and I think just it was very helpful just to have someone to do it with in the beginning. I think we parted company in the end because we had different visions about where we wanted to go. But we were able to part fairly amicably. But yeah, so I think maybe if there's part of the business that maybe you don't feel is your strong suit, I mean, you either have to get advice in that area, or you need to, have a partner that knows more about that side of things. So, yeah. And, it might be, sorry, go ahead.
No, I know. I was just going to say it's a good insight you're mentioning here for people. It's one of the questions we get a lot in interaction with people that listen is, how do they get the business going is one question, and then if they have an idea, should they get a partner? And I think one thing I personally learned, and on what you're saying as well, I think is a similar thing. I had a 50-50 partnership in one of my first businesses, and it really worked for me because we were very different skill-wise, but very similar moral code-wise. And then I had another partnership later that was 50-50, just assuming it was the 50-50 thing that made it work. It wasn't the 50-50 thing that made it work. It was the fact that we had the same moral code. And you just mentioned a very important word, vision. We had the same vision in the first partnership, but in my second partnership, we had a different vision. So the learning is not the setup of the equity, for example, but actually ensuring that you both have the same idea where you want the business to go. And I think having different skill sets to kind of agree with what you're saying, for sure.
And I think, I just learned some lessons from having a partnership, because I think, especially if you're friends with the person that you have a partnership with, you kind of feel like, well, nothing will ever go wrong. We have this friendship and we'll be able to work it out. But I think that's a dangerous assumption. And I think also you have to have a very clear contract with that person. Whatever contract you make has to be very, very clear. And yeah, and then like you just picked up on, I think the vision is really, really important, and to be really clear about what your vision is, and that you really share that with the person, because otherwise it's going to create conflict at some point, if you both want to go in different directions. And I think in previous businesses I've done it alone, and I think in the future I would also do it alone. So I think it can work with a partner, but it's not always recommendable.
I think that leads into a question. I think conflict is a thing we all face every day, and I do feel like my feeling is that some of the wellness elements that you put forward as philosophies within your business do tackle those sorts of issues. So are there any thoughts on how one goes about dealing with conflict?
Yeah, I think one of the most useful tools for dealing with conflict is nonviolent communication. Have you heard of that?
No, it sounds like it is what it says on the can, but I mean, I feel like you better explain it in case I just...
Well, nonviolent communication is just a system of how to communicate with somebody, especially if you're in a situation that is a little bit charged. And it's a communication set that was created by someone called Marshall Rosenberg. he's no longer alive, but it's practiced all over the world, actually. It's often used in mediation. So, even in political mediation, is just to find a way to communicate without charge or without antagonizing the person you're talking to. And it's a way of communicating your needs and your feelings, but without blaming the other person or judging them, So it's a sort of very non-confrontational way of communicating with another person. And I found it extremely easy to communicate in this way when I use those tools. It's not always easy to remember them, especially when you're in a heated situation, but that's when they're most useful, really, is when you learn how to express yourself without getting into an argument, and that's, I found those tools really very helpful in any kind of tense situation.
I found personally, I didn't really grasp the concept of how important wellness was as a business owner and how important that was to build wellness into your culture until I was in my 30s, and I started my first business at 15. So I had a good 15 years of just thinking it was about working hard and making money. It took me quite a long time to realize this wellness piece that you have of your business. One of the things I found really useful was mindfulness. And just understanding, try to put yourself also in the mind of someone else and what they're thinking, what their issues are. And it can be really hard when you're so adamant, perhaps you're right, for example. But have you? I mean, mindfulness is one of the things I think is really useful. Have you seen any other techniques other than what you just mentioned that are good for people maybe to look up if they're having conflict issues?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, like you said, it's like you've got to slow down in your own mind, because so often we just we spin out, in our own mind about something. And I think all of the things that we do here, like yoga and meditation, and I think the most important thing is really just understanding the nature of our own minds, and that's a bigger topic. It's not something you can do overnight, but meditation is a great tool in learning how to do that. And just actually creating space in your own mind, and also being able to cultivate kind of listening and empathy with other people, and slowing down, because I think our minds can be so busy, and in yoga we call that rajasic, like very energetic and changing all the time, and it's like we've drunk a few espressos or something. And I think what we're trying to teach people to do here is just to kind of calm down, to just be in nature, which being in nature is another great tool for just like becoming more calm, and just relaxing more. And then I think your mind is going to relax more, and then you're not going to be like so wound up about things. And I think that's really that's really why we've been such a successful business, because we get so many people coming from London, and like they just have such hectic lives, and then they come here and they're sort of able to breathe and relax, and they're like, whoa, a few days here, and they feel like they've been on vacation for a month, because it's just such a different environment, from being in a city.
It is funny, that environment thing. I was living in Hong Kong for 20 years, so I now live in London. But when I was when I moved from Hong Kong to London, I felt like London was a quiet retreat compared. But I guess it's just, as you quite rightly say, I think having a change of environment can make a huge difference. But I think in the wellness space, it's fascinating for me to watch an entrepreneur like you innovate in a time like this, because as you've just quite rightly said, wellness is so linked quite often to that environment and the beautiful environment I know that you do have at your resort, but trying to create a lot of the tools that people can still use even if they're not in that environment within your summit. It's pretty interesting. And trying to break down the essence of what is wellness, because as I say, even when I'm sitting on an aeroplane, the aeroplane video comes up trying to make me calm. It's not a picture of me on an aeroplane, it's a picture of me walking around the wood. And they do the stretching that you should do while walking around the wood in the video, not on the cramped plane that you're on, right? So how do you create that within an online environment? And how have you done it?
Well, I think, I think it's difficult. I think what you're saying, it's quite difficult to create the environment that we have here online, but we can offer the same tools that we offer here. What you're missing, of course, is just actually the place itself, which of course is a huge thing. But I think what we've tried to do in the summit is just offer as many tools as we can to help people build resilience. And I think that, it starts with our physical body, really. But so it's everything to do with the physical body, like movement, and then obviously movement's something you can easily bring online. Nutrition, I think just talking to people about these things so they can start to bring them into their lives. Also, we're offering, obviously, some live meditations as well, and yoga nidra. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a kind of deep relaxation. It's a guided deep relaxation. And so we're offering loads of tools that people can do. And I think if you're laying on your mat with your eyes closed, you could be anywhere, you don't necessarily know. And hopefully we'll transport people, just through engaging them with these different practices where you have your eyes closed, actually. So of course it would be preferable to be here with your eyes closed, but second best, you can do a retreat whilst still locked down in your house.
I was gonna say something that perhaps makes it feel flippant when it comes to wellness. But I was thinking just send someone some incense and a nice candle and that. Because you're absolutely right, actually. It's a very good point, isn't it? I think sometimes you can close your eyes and you can actually be anywhere. So in many respects, we're in lockdown in London right now, many places in the world are in lockdown, but a lot of that lockdown is in our own minds. We can close our eyes and be anywhere, feel the sand on our feet if that's where we want to be, or frankly play a bit of music in the background that makes you feel like you're at the beach, right? So it's an interesting thing to explore, isn't it? Because it is so traditional. Let's call it the old world, where you go somewhere to get that sensation. But I do think it's possible to create it somewhat with the right guidance and the right training, which is, I think, what you're offering through your wellness summit. And I think people can achieve something similar. It might be different, but it could give them the same feeling of freeing their mind, for example.
Yeah. Well, one thing I also found important, which we did a cyber retreat during the first lockdown in March, and what was really beautiful about that is we really created community with the people that were coming to our classes, and we were, I was doing philosophy talks and meditations, and we did a lot of yoga classes. But what was really beautiful was just that people felt really connected, and we would, talk with each other. And some of the people that were on that cyber retreat, I met for the first time on the cyber retreat, and then they came here afterwards. There was a small window of time where we could have some guests, and some of the guests we met online came here because they just felt so connected to us. So I think you can create connection to others online, definitely. There's and one strange thing I've experienced is when I've been doing meditations online, is that I actually can feel the presence of the other people. It's a tangible thing, and it's hard to explain, but I don't feel like I'm alone. And usually I have my eyes closed as well, but I just have this sense of all the other people that are there meditating with me. And so that's an interesting thing that happens.
I think that I have to say, I know this whole coronavirus, I'm frankly even sick of saying the word, to be honest. I know that we're all kind of sick of it, but there are some really interesting things that are coming from it. One thing I've really loved about the whole situation, putting aside all the negative from it, because I know there's a lot of negative for a lot of people, but one of the things I have liked is Brexit happened in England. The news was always out who was against who. And there was this huge divide between people that were for Brexit and people that were against Brexit. But one thing about coronavirus is it's happening to us all. And I think it's something that in a way does bring us together, like the the difficult moment that we're all. For example, I met a friend the other day who is normally quite self-centered. They're a nice person, but they have a centered element to them, and normally go straight into telling me about themselves, and I'm not judging them, that's who they are. But this is one of the first times they're like, Simon, how are you, and how's your family? And I think people are really taking a step back and actually care about other people, and just how are things going your side. I don't know, it's woken people up a little bit to be a little less selfish and be a little bit more aware of what's happening around them, and if they're doing well, it doesn't mean others are, and how can they help, and it's bringing out some really nice traits in people. And I like the point you just made a lot about the energy that you can feel sometimes, and tapping into that and feeling that energy of the goodness in people instead of the negative out there is a really good thing, I think, for people to take away from your point there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important that people don't get so caught up in media and what, like, I think if you spend your whole time watching about the latest updates on coronavirus, it's really bad for your state of mind, So I think that there is so much being offered online right now. I think there's just so much out there, and so much yoga, meditation, everything. So you have all the tools you need really to actually spend your time, working on yourself, as opposed to, just getting all caught up in the whole drama that's unfolding, which is just very stressful. Like, I think it has just had this effect of making you feel really stressed out.
It's like my dog right now. We have a podcast, we have to be professional, no barking. She's 9 years old. I think she'd know, right? I mean,
I have the same problem. I have 2 little dogs, so I understand.
It's and that's the other thing I personally feel. A lot of people try to separate their work and their life, and I think, of course, coronavirus has been a lot of people are working from home. There is something quite interesting about not separating things, isn't there? I think I feel like when I spoke to you probably 3 or 4 months ago, one of the things I loved about your energy was the way that you love what you do, and what you do is who you are, and it's not like some separate thing that you do, and that's a very important piece of living a purposeful and enjoyable life. I think that a lot of people do overlook, but again, I think coronavirus might have given this to people because they're able to work from home, spend a bit more time with their family, traveling so much in airplanes. These are good things. I think.
Oh yeah, I think it's great for some people to be able to work at home, and for other people maybe not so good, because maybe they're used to kind of having a social life around work that's not there anymore. But I mean, I think the point you just made about doing what you love, I think that's the most important thing. And I think maybe I think a lot of people are actually even thinking deeply about, am I doing the right thing? Like, it's given people more time to think, having this sort of break in their normal routine. And I know I had a yoga teacher training here in July, and amazingly, people came to that. So I have people from all over, and they were all people in transition. Like, I just gave up my job, I just got fired. And I was actually surprised people are interested in becoming yoga teachers, because at the moment it's not really possible to teach real people. And it's like, I think we're going to have to teach people how to teach online now.
Oh wow!
But it was just interesting. Go ahead.
No.
Sorry.
Go on. You said it was interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was interesting to see how many people were actually in transition. Like changing their career or thinking about what they really wanted to do.
Yeah, well, that was a phenomenon I saw before coronavirus. A lot of people, I'm going to say in their 30s, that were kind of put on the treadmill, I think, into university sort of life, and then a career after university based on their university education. And, they then discovered who they really were, and for example, didn't feel that they actually liked being a lawyer, and there's plenty of people like that. And I think one thing I've seen that is a positive, I think, from coronavirus is it's kind of realized that we're not immortal. Life is short, and you should spend your days doing something you love. And I've been shocked. When I started my platform, I was expecting a lot of, I'm going to say 18, 19, 20-year-olds to come to us to get help to start a business. But what's actually happened, surprisingly, is a lot of people in their 40s that, almost like, can I still do it? Am I young enough? I was told to do in my 20s, and I just got on the treadmill in my 30s, and now I want to do something I actually love, and so again, I bet you see that when people came to your retreats as well. People click off from their day to day, and then they must kind of like wake up for a minute and say, what am I doing with my life? Why am I doing a job I hate? Which is just, I think, one of the worst things you can do.
Yeah, no, I haven't had a lot of people say that, actually. I always encourage people to just do what they love. I think that's the most important thing. And even if you are much poorer than you were doing something you hate, it's preferable, right?
Yeah. Well, you're getting a lot of love online at the moment. People are liking your energy, by the way. So thank you. I'm going to bring our next entrepreneur on, who's going to tell us about his business Bright Ideas. He's been politely waiting in the waiting room. So, Chris, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been lovely listening to that, and it was almost like I felt like you were kind of telling my story a little bit in essence, and the story that I'm trying to create for young people. So it was quite a nice transition, that.
Well, thanks, Chris. Yeah, all unrehearsed. This is live and unrehearsed. So why don't you tell the audience that's listening a little bit about what you're up to and your story?
Yeah, so I've been teaching for 15 years. I started as a PE teacher and was quickly promoted into a pastoral position, which is that supporting, I guess, the well-being of young people, and that became a big passion of mine. It was something that I always wanted to do when I was trained to become a teacher, and I was fortunate enough to get that position quite quickly. So essentially, it was supporting behaviour and the well-being of young people. And then as I grew, I started doing that with the older students in secondary schools in year 10 and 11. And then I moved to a sixth form, similar sort of position, looking after the well-being, but more of an academic focus. And then there's more of a focus around careers and future ambitions and things like that. And then over the last, I'd say 5 years, I got into coaching. Because I got into coaching because I knew there was another way of engaging young people with either their own well-being, their own academic journey, and their own kind of habits. But I just didn't know how to really, really tap into these young people. So I came across coaching, started training, and then I've just loved it. And part of my work now actually was with adults. And what I started to realize actually when I was working with adults in education, the teachers and leaders within education, that they were presenting the same sort of challenges as the young people were presenting. So it might be confidence, it might be lack of focus, lack of direction, or it could be, they're really successful, but they just want the extra edge in their life. And I was kind of thinking, well, if adults are getting all this coaching and it's really taken off in the UK now, I'm like, well, what's happening with these young people? Because if these young people don't develop these skills, and I mean as young as kind of like 5 and 6, and they're not getting the support all the way up through the education system, then naturally we're gonna churn out a group of adults that again are lost in terms of sense of their purpose, but potentially they've not got the skills and leadership capabilities that we need them to have as they grow into adult life, really. So then I guess I formally set up Bright Leaders, I guess officially, in October, and my intention is to move away from my full-time paid position, which is a job that I really enjoy. I love it, but I just know that this work with Bright Leaders is truer to my heart, really, and I know that I'll be able to have the kind of impact that I really want to have with young people and the educators that are looking after the young people.
Well, I think that's a really interesting insight there too, Chris. I think you're moving away from a job you like into something is your calling. That's almost a harder call in some respects than leaving a job you hate. That's quite a lot of conviction and very clear definition of what is success for you, I think. So, congratulations, well done. So tell me exactly what the business will do. If you were trying to sum it up in a sentence, kind of what will your Bright Leaders business do?
I kind of on a mission really to build courageous influencers. And what I mean by that is, I think with the social media now, we're kind of we're almost trained to think that influence is having a number of followers, thousands of followers. And actually, really, the person that you need to influence is yourself. But that's hard to do. You've got to make some hard decisions. You've got to be brave, and you've got to be really courageous to look after yourself. But once you've focused on yourself and you've looked after your personal leadership, which I think is vital to the work I want to do, it's then you can really start thinking about how you can have an impact on other people. So it's about building communities, really, of courageous influencers. Yeah.
It's an interesting use of the word courageous, because I always think of influencers as quite brave already. Somewhat they're putting themselves out there. They're getting criticised. I've got quite a big following on TikTok lately, and you put out information you think's helping people, and people come back and they can be pretty tough on you. So you have to be quite courageous to be an influencer. But what I think is really fascinating about what you're saying there is the whole idea that you've got to find yourself, which is why I have both of you on. Actually, I can see a thread between the two, although you're coming at it from completely different worlds in many respects. That finding who you are piece within both of what you do, I think, is really interesting. And so how do you do it with Bright Leaders? How do you make an influencer courageous? How's that going to happen, Chris?
Yeah, I guess, well, initially, I think for a lot of young people, when they think of courage, so you'll ask any young person from the age of 5 to 15, actually, you'll say, like, give me an image when you think of courage. And often they'll talk about like war or fighting, like fighting a dragon or something. I'm like, well, these dragons don't exist for a start, but let's just imagine actually that courage is putting your hand up in class. Maybe it's answering a question in class when you're really unsure. Maybe it's actually asking for help. Maybe that's courage for you. So I want to try and oversimplify really and break down what courage is, because I think when we can have a look at it from a different angle, we can really start to encourage people of all ages actually to take steps towards their own personal development.
Yeah, it's a really interesting reframing of the word courageous there. I've got a 3-year-old, and I do have this conversation with him about being brave. He's got food allergies, and this morning I had to take him for some tests, and I was telling him to be brave like a lion. I don't know why a lion is ever brave, but it's interesting how we build up. That's my own, subconscious training that somehow a lion is brave. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. Lydia, what do you think of this? What's your view on what?
Yeah, it sounds like a really interesting idea. And I love this thing. Well, first of all, you are following what, is really calling to you. It's your dream to do it. And in the yoga tradition, we have this thing called a svadharma, which is your calling, and that it's really important for someone to find their svadharma or calling in life, and follow it. And so, I think I was just saying to Simon earlier that it doesn't matter. Sometimes if you find your calling and you do it, it's not really about making money. It's about doing what you love. And I think what you're speaking about is encouraging kids to actually do what they love and to actually find out what that is, because actually I think that's something that's quite lacking in the school system is you're not often really encouraged. They're often trying to fit you into some kind of slot, or maybe your parents have an idea of what they think you should do and this kind of thing. And I think that this kind of encouragement for kids and starting with kids at a younger age, where they can start to really explore what it means to actually know because I think as a kid, you often don't even know what it is that you love. So I think it sounds like an admirable, thing that you're going to do. But I was also wondering, how are you going to do it? Is it like some kind of academy that's like extracurricular to schoolwork, or how is it going to actually function?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because the coronavirus has actually presented an opportunity for me, really, because I'm in a full-time job. I've got some good contacts that I want to work with, but they're like, Chris, I want to work with you, but you've got a full-time job. I can't have you in on Friday. So this has been able to give me kind of an online format to start working with schools. So I've got a course running and with young people, but also I've got my first gig, if you like, in a school where they'll let me in. They'll let me as which is amazing. So the way I want it to work, and when things die down, I want a building. I mean, I want a Bright Leaders building where young people can come to thrive, and the parents that know that when they walk into this building, they're going to come out feeling stronger, feeling better, and wanting to do more in their lives. And what we will do then in the building is given the tools, tips, and techniques to kind of run with what they love, really. But currently, I'm doing online coaching, trying to get the message out, and doing some online workshops.
That's great. So it's a kind of self-empowerment to kids too.
Oh, absolutely. And what's really interesting is, and this is really interesting activity to do with adults as well. You'll say, write down a list of all the things you're great at. Write down a list of all the things that you're not great at. And the list of the things that they're not great at is always going to be longer, I think, with the majority of people. And what we need to do is we need to shift the focus. And I think in education, what we do a lot of is, and you understand it to some extent because it's exam driven. You're like, well, what can you do to do better? You've got this grade now. Where can we move to this grade? But actually, let's flip it a little bit and let's get these young people knowing and owning the strengths that they've got. And that's part of the work that I'll be doing is when you know and own your strengths and you feel empowered to take action based on owning your strengths, then you can be really unstoppable. So, and I think it's getting into the kids young. So whilst there's a need for this with even like university age students, and I know there's a need for this with adults, but we can start young. And I've got two kids, 6 and 2. And when my lad puts his little Bright Leaders top on, he's like, Dad, I'm a Bright Leader now, right? And he once said to me, it was brilliant. And he said to me, he had his top on. He said, Dad, Bright Leaders aren't late. And I was like, wow. He just put his hoodie on, and we're talking about things, that we would expect. Older kids to be talking about. So yeah, it's been really nice.
Vidya, we need to get you a hoodie. We should set you the dress code. It's
I know, and you're both wearing but you didn't tell me.
No, I didn't tell you. But I am Chris. I'm kind of I'm feeling really excited about what you're doing, and maybe it's because I've got a 3-year-old, and I can just imagine your 2-year-old saying what he just said. But I think I just invested in a business called Peas and Pod. And one of the things I love about the founders and what they're doing is that they're trying to bring nature to kids a bit more. I mean, there was this whole thing a little while ago where Jamie Oliver showed kids a fruit and they didn't know where it had come from. They literally thought it had come from a supermarket. I won't mention the supermarket the kid said, but they've lost touch with nature. And I think there is a huge problem where in the education system where kids lose touch with, it's not about what you don't know and therefore you need to learn it, but about what you do know and how you can harness that skill. Like, I was dyslexic, and I am dyslexic. So at school, I was permanently being pushed into reading more, which is completely the opposite to what my skill set allows me to do. Like I should have been given, as I do today, more creative things, more inventive things. But instead, the school system seemed to want to fix what was broken. And actually what was broken, it wasn't broken. I mean, I remember at school being told, read this book and tomorrow you have to come in and talk about it, and being so scared about it. And then I learned to ask all my friends, they read the book, what they thought. Then I had 12 different opinions about the same book, whereas they all had one about the book. So I could go in and give 12 different views on the same book because I hadn't read the book and I'd listened to other people's views on the book. So these weaknesses people have can be their strengths.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really resonating with me, what you're doing, Chris. What is the next step for you? I mean, you're clearly gearing up to give up a job you like to do this, which is a big move. What can me and the audience listening do to help you? What do you need at this time?
So I think where I'm at is that I'm confident in terms of my own abilities and the programs and the feedback I'm getting, both with programs that I'm doing group stuff and the one-to-one stuff. For me, because I'm transitioning from something that is in the known and the known for the people around, the unknown for me is like the world of business, and I haven't got yet the business skills in terms of business planning, forecasting things for the future. Cash flow is something now I'm starting to think about, accessing funding, and then I guess it's how to scale what I'm doing and how to market it and build in strategies around that. And I'm well connected within the world of education, but what I need to get really is a level of connection with people who understand business and who can give me a different layer of advice, really.
Yeah, well, if you were listening to Vidya's story earlier, one of the things I loved she was talking about was how, you know, she decided to do something, got a partner, learned how to do it, and it was really like a week by week learning curve, sometimes just by doing it. Vidya, I don't know if you want to add anything there, but, you know, to advise Chris at all.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I opened a yoga studio, and it was a big yoga studio in Massachusetts. And as I was saying, I really am not that good at the whole business side either. But to me, I think what can make a business work is you just have your full attention on it, and you know it's a good thing, and you know you're going to do it, and then somehow what I found is that everything falls into place when you're really focused on what it is you want to do, and it's the right thing for you to do. And I think it's I think I've actually used my will to make things happen. You know, like if it's what you really want to do and you're 100% behind it, then I think the right people will show up. That's been my experience also. It's just like, you know, you look around, is there somebody that could help with marketing? And, you know, you get connections. And another thing I was going to suggest, I don't really know whether your idea is to do more online work or more in-person work. So I wasn't quite sure about that. But I know, for example, when I was teaching yoga and I had the studio, I used to do a lot of free events and get people hooked. And then, and from there, you know, it's easy to find paying customers because people love stuff that's free. So I always found that was a really good way to get my studio going. When I had a yoga studio, it was like offering free workshops, free days, free classes, and then getting people hooked in. So I was thinking you could do the same thing if it's live kids. You know, you offer, I'm sure you've thought of this, but offering, you know, free events, and so the kids really want to come, and then, you know, then they need to pay for it.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good advice, because one of the challenges that I'm exploring at the minute, I guess, is a lot of parents want the kids to do the stuff, but then it's how do I get the kids to turn up? Because it's not like, I don't know, football practice sounds a little bit more attractive to meeting this guy who's going to help you, you know, explore, you know, how to set goals and things. So, yeah, that's some really good advice there.
Well, I mean, just to say as well, Chris, a couple of things. My marketing side is a whole category on its own, and depending on how you're looking to build a business, I mean, I can put you in touch with some people that really know what they're talking about when it comes to marketing. I like to think I have a bit of knowledge, but you know, if you're going to appeal to a group of people, I had to take my son to rugby training when he was 2 years old, and he just wasn't into it. I was, because I used to play rugby, so I wanted him to enjoy it, but he didn't want to go, so he didn't go. But I'm sure if you put up a message, become a social media influencer, you'd have a whole flood of people that would be interested in that. And of course, you can reframe it when you get there, that it's not about playing rugby, it's about the catching the ball and coordination and all the things that really matter, not necessarily being an influencer. But one thing I'll say to you, Chris, you know, applying your own philosophy a little bit, like I don't think you don't know business. I think you don't know business. And I think you've been told that business is this, you know, difficult thing. In reality, it's not. I mean, I think what Lydia just said is kind of right. It really is just applying yourself. And so maybe the first step is to stop saying that to yourself. You know, I absolutely, listening to you, I mean, I haven't seen your business proposal or any of that, but I feel like I'd invest in you. You know, you just got the energy of someone that's doing something they're meant to be doing. And you're not trying to contrive story about how you love your job and you're going to quit it to do this thing. That's who you are. And I think in business that sometimes gets lost in this jargon about, you know, do a business plan and present yourself in this certain way, and this is what you're meant to do in the boardroom, when in reality I think successful business people are actually authentic. They just say it as it is. And actually, as Lydia just said as well, you know, putting your hand up as you have done, reaching out to us here and saying, hey, I would like some help. People will help you, especially with what you're doing. I think what you're doing is really purposeful, and I think a lot of people will help you. So I don't know. Maybe stop saying that to yourself, you know, and be a courageous business person and see yourself that way. But when you say, you know, business, what do you think are the next 2 or 3 steps you've got to make? That you know, you mentioned funding there. I mean, that's always a concern. But what are the next few steps for you that you're not quite sure about, and would give you a bit of advice now?
Yeah, I think so. For me, it's leaving a comfortable, well-paid job to get into the zone of constant cash flow and constant work, really. And I want to make a real commitment to this. I want to start looking at, maybe it's September, have it being out there doing this work. So I want to really get things moving. But I think the scary thing is, and this is again what I do with the clients I work with, it's about working through that fear and taking steps. And I feel like I'm part way to doing that, but it's how I can go from this, I guess, comfortable job in terms of finance, because I like my house, and then how I can move on. And it's not like you said earlier, it's not necessarily about money, but I just want to have that as transition so that at least I can keep the building,
Yeah, ironically, this will probably go way back to like your 0 to 7 years in your subconscious, where, wherever your parents were going through at that time creates an insecurity in your subconscious. So if you had an unstable home environment, for example, suddenly having a stable home for you and your kids right now will seem important to be a good father for your children. But in reality, what children really want is to see their parents happy. Right? My son, we live in a nice house, but he doesn't care about our house. He has no comprehension whether this is a nice house or not. He just knows this is where he lives. But in reality, the fact that his parents are happy people is what translates into a happy child, right? So I mean, not that you've said this because you haven't, but you don't worry about owning a house or having anything too fancy for the kids. I think ultimately, maybe one way for you to look at it would be have a stop-loss mindset. This is how I help a lot of people unplug from the matrix of existing job. Is I'm sure you've got some savings. I'm sure you've got a baseline amount behind you that allows you to even have this conversation with yourself. Just give yourself a stop loss. The good thing about what you're doing is you can always go back to a job, right? You've got that advantage. You've got a job you love. They probably love you there. I'm not sure. Maybe later they'll watch this video and give some comments. Who knows? But I'm sure they do. In reality, you could take a year off and go back and probably get a job, right? So I think that, maybe that can help you make the leap. As far as the finances is concerned, I always warn people that when you start a business, just get your costs down in your personal life as much as you can. And sometimes that's what worries me about mortgages, because people can own a house, and if you're not careful, the house ends up owning you. I meet way too many people who own a house but have a miserable day-to-day life. A house will not make you happy. And so, making sure that doesn't get in your way, and don't let these things own you, get your costs down. I'm sure you're thinking about all this, but I'm just saying the basics in case it helps you psychologically, just kind of make the leap. But honestly, once you start something like you're starting, the upside is so unlimited and so freeing that possessions become unimportant. You start making an impact in people's lives, which sounds like you already are with what you're doing in your day-to-day life already. But you start changing the trajectory of a 6-year-old and making them courageous. Just imagine what they can go and do, right? And that means, I guess this kind of comes back to Buddhism, right? Like I would live, I don't care where I live if I can make an impact in people's lives that have that sort of effect, right? And you have the potential to make that sort of effect. So I get over the structure that you've been brought up in. And just break free. And I know myself. I never had a job. So but my wife is always getting job offers. She now has her own business, and she's always getting job offers. And she's been working for herself now for 10 years. She'd never go working for someone else now. Lydia, I'm sure you'd agree with me. There's no way you'd work for someone else now, right?
No.
The thing,
No, definitely not.
You never meet anyone. If you've had more than 2 years out, you can never go back in, and there's a reason for it, right? So just keep that in mind from people that have come out the other end. If you can get through 2 years, you'll never want to work for someone else again. And it doesn't matter how good the job is, because you won't be in charge of what happens in your day-to-day, and you won't be in charge of the vision and mission of the business. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to make you happy, and that's what's going to make your children happy, because you're happy. And they're going to be inspired by you, as it sounds like your 2-year-old already is.
Yeah, thank you. You're right. A lot of these, I guess, values around money do come from parents, and me and my wife have talked a lot about this, and actually understanding that mindset and where it comes from. You're dead right with that. Yeah.
You sound like you've got one thing. I think very important: have the right partner in life. I mean, for me, I often say to people, I'm not successful because I'm smart. I'm successful because I married the right person. I have the right people. And if you're not married, it's not just about having the right people around you, but it sounds like you've got a wife who supports you. That is so important. They have to be, they're on this journey with you. They're taking the risk too. And if you've got them behind you, it makes a huge difference to going through the pain. In fact, I can tell you, I've invested in 68 companies, right, without promoting myself too much on my own channel. But and one of the things I always do when I invest in a business is I meet the founder's partner. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10 whether or not that is going to succeed based on their partner. I just invested in another business, and the lady I invested in, Karen, she's just so talented. And when I met her wife, I knew she was going to make it because her wife is so behind her in the business, you know. And so I think that partner in life is just so crucial. Sounds like you've got a good one. Yeah,
this is a happy house. It's great, and I think the reason why I've not moved at the Bright Leaders thing faster than I guess wanted to is because life's good, you know. I just think and I believe that it can be better, and I can have more of an impact doing what we're doing. Yeah.
Any comments on you mentioned partners earlier, Vidya, so I know you know finding a partner in business is also an interesting process.
Oh yeah, I actually don't have a partner. I have 2 dogs. But, yeah, I mean, here we kind of live in community as well, because a lot of the people that work here live here. So I think having emotional support is really important. And having people around that, you know, for whatever you're doing. And I feel like I've always had loads of support and friends that have really, you know, helped in so many ways. So I think you're totally right. Like just having that, you know, just feeling support from other people is vitally important, even if you don't have a business partner, but just having other support and encouragement, I think it's super important to be successful.
You've got to surround yourself with people that, a bit like you're saying about your whole philosophy of your business, Chris, right? You've got to surround yourself with people that see the positive in the opportunity, not the negative, right? I think it's just, and I know parents is a difficult one. I've had a big falling out with my mum, and for 30 years we hardly talk. I've come to terms with it because she's different to me, and I don't want to say she's right or wrong, or I'm right or wrong. You know, we both have our part to play in our reasons we don't get on, but I've just come to accept that just because she's my mother, it doesn't mean to say I have to like her. I'm sure she says the same about me, you know. But I think sometimes realizing that as well, right? Realizing that some people in your life can be there for you and will get you and understand that risk is part of life, and other people have been brought up differently. You know, so it's but anyway, I think it sounds like you've got a good partner there. What does your partner do? I'm sure she's listening right now. Would you give her some kudos?
Actually, she's just, kids have got back from school, so she was a HR manager, so I can hear the tea time going on in the background. So was a HR manager, and 18 months ago she went self-employed, which was like a massive decision. I was so proud of her. And she's a foot health practitioner, so she's mobile. She goes doing like podiatry work with people locally. She loves it.
Wow. She knows the journey you're about to go on then, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before we leave, is there anything else? Any questions you have before we end today's podcast?
No, it's just been lovely to talk things through. Yeah, and it helps obviously me visualize things. Talking about what I do is great, isn't it? Talking about what you do. So it's thanks for just giving me the space. And if you do know anybody that can support me, or you can connect with people, then I'd be more than welcome to have some support. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, well, let's definitely talk offline. And what Vidya's just said as well, again, I agree with everything she says. Community is so important. That's why we're here. We're here to help people like you succeed. And all we ask at my platform is that once you're a big success, is that you do the same. So that's all we need you to promise to do. Once you've made it, you help other people get there. But let's definitely talk offline about the detail and see what else we can do. But you have a community here that will help you. So excited to see what you achieve. And yeah, well done.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, Chris.
Thank you. I'll make a good go of it. Cheers.
See you. Vidya, thank you as well for joining today. Thanks for sharing your story. I'm excited about your event in December. I put the links down below in the broadcast for anyone listening that wants to find out. Can we still get tickets? Can people still sign up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We still have early bird tickets. So yeah,
Oh, great.
please go to the website and check it out. We've got loads of great people on the show, on the summit. So it's going to be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Look forward to it. I'll be there, and looking forward to having some wellness experiences. So that should be awesome. Again, thanks for coming on. Great to see you today.
Thank you so much.
Very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully.
See you.
Bye.
There we go, guys. That's our podcast for today. I hope you found my guests interesting, their insights useful, their stories inspiring. If you did, do me a favor. Their links are down below. Go onto their social media and give them a like. It doesn't cost anything. They'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions for the guests or me, feel free to comment in today's broadcast on any of the 20 channels or so that we're broadcasting on today. If you need anything from us here at the Purposeful Project, please feel free to reach out. As I say all the time, we're here to help people start businesses and grow their businesses. Tonight at 7:30 p.m, we have a 1.5 hour webinar where we will be sharing with people how to build a brand, how to grow their businesses, how to structure their companies. I have some amazing experts coming on in all of these areas. We will spend an hour and a half chatting through all of these insights into business that we've all gained as entrepreneurs and founders over the years. It's totally free. We will not be selling you anything during the broadcast. After the broadcast, it's not about us selling anything. It's about us giving you information on what and how you are going to find your purpose in life, and how you're going to build a business that you love, and how you're going to find out what you're meant to be doing with your life. That's what we're here to help you achieve. And we want nothing in return, except when you're successful, you promise to do the same. So that's it, folks. Thanks very much for joining the broadcast today. And I'll see you next Wednesday for the Wednesday Live. You can also, of course, join us for the Good Luck Club podcast, which tomorrow is with, who have we got? James Chase. So James is the founder of Tyrrell Crisps, one of the UK's most beloved crisp brands, the largest privately owned crisp brand. And he is starting a new business called Chase Distillery. And he'll be telling us about his story of his family who were farmers, making crisps and potatoes for other people's businesses, other people's brands. And they decided to do it for themselves and built a wonderful brand with a deep purpose. And I think you'll find his story as a second generation entrepreneur both insightful and unique. So you can join us on the Good Luck Club podcast. Again, you can grab that on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and all the usual places where podcasts can be found. Again, thanks for listening today, folks, and have a wonderful afternoon.